Good morning to everybody. Today we continue with our discussions regarding the semiotic study of Indic Dharma traditions. We have covered one portion of these Dharma traditions, which is Sanatan Dharma or Hindu Dharma. Now we come to the other three or other divergent Dharma traditions which differ from the Hindu Dharma in certain very important aspects. We are going to discuss Jainism, Buddhism, and Charvaka. These three Dharma traditions, of course, Charvaka is considered only a philosophical system, not a Dharma tradition in the exact term. But it has got its view of the world and way of life. And you know, in the beginning, I told you that while attempting semiotic analysis of our traditions, we are keeping two parameters in front of us, in our view. Those are the world view, the view about the cosmos, human society, nature, and everything which is we consider real. This is one thing. The other parameter is the way of life. These two themes are interrelated. Whatever is our worldview, it affects our way of life also. So, from these two parameters, because semiotics is concerned with with analyzing the phenomenon from the point of view of signification and significance, reaching at the level of significance. In semiotics, you have now known quite clearly that one aspect of semiotics is analysis, analyzing the phenomenon and discussing its elements from the structural point of view, how they are related to each other. But the next thing is, which has been introduced by later developments in semiotics, the element of cultural anthropology has affected this discipline very much. Like in the literary studies, there is one phase of theorizing about literature. This is up to structuralism, which is concerned with the formal aspects or the technology of literature. And after post-structuralism, the scenario changes. The criticism and literary theory undergoes a revolutionary turn. One revolutionary turn was given by Saussure when he provided a linguistic turn in our understanding literature, arts, and humanities, culture also. So, from that point of view, I am just summarizing my thoughts to you so that you may get a proper perspective of what we are discussing, why we are discussing. Because, as you know, the religion or dharma are so important things in our life, they affect us. They give us understanding of the world as well as a model for living. And from that point of view, what experiments with reality or living have taken place in our land from the ancient period to classical period to, and going through the medieval period up to the modern times. And it's a very important thing that our civilization is most ancient and most modern because it has a continuity. It is a living tradition. Like I told you that Muhammad Iqbal said, सारे जहाँ से अच्छा हिंदुस्तान हमारा, हम बुलबुलें हैं इसकी ये गुलिस्तान हमारा. He said, यूनान और मिस्र और रोमा सब मिट गए जहाँ से. These were the ancient civilization, यूनान, मिस्र and Rome. बाकी है अभी तक नामो निशान हमारा. But he also said one more important thing, which we do not know properly. He also said, ना समझोगे तो मिट जाओगे ए हिंदुस्तान वालों. If you don't properly understand your civilization, then you will be eradicated from the face of history, O people of Hindustan. तुम्हारी दास्तां तक न होगी दास्तानों में. Your story will be eradicated from the face of this earth. So the important thing we learn from this great thinker, modern thinker, he was a great Urdu poet. The most important thing is to understand and appreciate our traditions in our own idiom, because every generation faces a great challenge of interpreting the ancient traditions in the contemporary idiom. So semiotics is, in a way, contemporary idiom in which we understand this word. It has been given to us by the scientific developments in the field of epistemology, the science of knowledge. So our people, we all understand this word in this idiom. So this is the context in which I will going to talk about Jainism, Buddhism, Charvakas, and if the time permits, about medieval Bhakti movement also, which is a continuation of these traditions in a very different perspective. So, before beginning, I would like to share with you an anecdote connected with life of Buddha. Buddha was at deathbed, lying at deathbed. They call it Mahaparinirvana. He was nearing death. Somebody from far off place came running and asked the people around Buddha to arrange for a meeting, his meeting with Buddha. They told him that Buddha is going to pass away from his existence. Now there is no use talking to him. He said, I have a very important question to ask Buddha, because he is the only enlightened person on earth at this time. So please permit me to him. Somehow Buddha heard these things. He said, let him in. Even at this time of my life, he came face to face with Buddha and put him a very pertinent question. He said, Sir, can you tell me whether Ishvara exists, God exists? Buddha kept silent. He again repeated, Sir, I am asking you a very important question which is disturbing my life for so many years. I have been searching for God and its existence. Please you tell me whether God or Ishvara exists or not. Just one thing, I want to be sure about it. Again Buddha kept silent. When third time he asked, he addressed him. Look here, I do not know whether Ishvara exists or not, because I had more important task on my hands to inquire about And I'm sure about one thing, that man exists in this world. For this I am sure. And he is in suffering at every stage of life. I am concerned with the eradication of suffering all along during all my life so far. So there was no occasion for me to ponder of these questions of the existence of Ishvara. This is a very important thing in Buddhism. Because when we were discussing Nasdiya Sutta, the conclusion was, when there was nothing, when there was no death, no life, no day or no, even then there existed one which was self-sustainable. So Vedic thesis about this universe is that one supreme being, call it Brahma, exists in this world all the time from beginning to end. So there is no going back on this thesis. But Buddha gave an alternative thesis. He kept silent about the existence of the Supreme Being, but he said, we have the reality of human existence in this world. We all exist and suffer, and there are causes for suffering, and there are solutions for that to eradicate the suffering of human beings. So he presented an alternative scheme of things. In the place of Brahma, he gave the idea of Shunya. Brahma is one in fullness. Shunya is zero, complete emptiness. And according to Buddhist philosophy, this world has come out of pure emptiness. So our concern should be to analyze and interpret this created world, not the situation before this. Because before this is a shunya. You cannot do anything. Interestingly, the computer language operates in 0 and 1. So both these traditions are complementary to each other, where Brahma emphasizes the oneness of whole being. And Buddhism hints at the emptiness, pure emptiness, Paramashunya. And then in Vedic thought, there was idea of Atma. Brahma exists, then Jiva Atma. The individual with a soul, soul is not the right word, with individuality, the man exists, and that individuality is equated to the Brahma. Shankara clarifies this concept. He says, Brahm Atmaikya Bodhin Vina Muktir na Siddhyati. Without realizing the identity of Atma and Brahma, there is no salvation. This is Vedic point of view. So in the symbolism of this Vedic thought, Brahma, Atma and Jagat, these three signifiers are operating. In place of these three signifiers, Buddhism gives us three alternative set. One is Shunya, the other is Anatma, non-self. Shunya, then non-self, and in place of moksha, he gives us idea of nirvana. Nirvana means the extinguishing of the flame. So when we die, the flame which was burning within us is distinguished, and we enter the world of emptiness. This is Buddhist metaphysics. And likewise, Jain thought because Buddhism and Jainism are alternative traditions. They are called Shramanic traditions, whereas Vedic Hindu metaphysics and Dharma tradition is called Brahmanic. Nowadays, Brahman is the derogatory term for Hinduism, but it has its connotation due to certain aspects of Buddhism which developed in the course of time. And Brahmanism is the word referred to Hinduism due to empty ritualism and casteism, rigid casteism. And Buddhism revolted against these two things. He rejected empty ritualism. I'm talking of empty ritualism, because there is no religion without ritual. As you know, the science of religion tells us there are 3 C's operating in a religious tradition. One is cult, the other is creed, and the third is code. Cult is a ritual system, and creed is the ideas about the universe. Creed is the belief system, and code is the moral code. So these are the 3 important aspects of every religious tradition. But Buddhism rejected empty ritualism because it was detrimental to the average human beings due to the exploitation of the priestly class. And the idea of a rigid caste system, which was at the time of Buddhism very inhuman, had converted into an inhuman system, making distinctions on the base of caste, and then giving a hierarchical order to people, divide the people in hierarchical terms. If we go to Shankara, who says that Jiva is a Brahm, then why these distinctions are made in the name of caste and creed? So Buddhism is in a way, Buddhism and Jainism are in a way protest movements springing out of Vedic tradition, protesting about certain aspects of Hinduism, not all the Hinduism. This should be very clear, and we must not reject the Hindu tradition wholesale. The Hindu tradition has contributed in the field of knowledge in a very enriched way. But these deviations were protested by the Shramanic tradition. And Shramanic tradition starts from the existential situation of man. I am reminded of a very important seminar conducted by Christian community about 2 decades back. It was called Contextual Theology. I participated and I was pleasantly surprised about the thinking going on within the Christian scholars. They were talking about that we should now reverse the theological model. Previously, we were trying to explain Christian theology from above. Now let us restart from below, starting from God or starting from man. And it was a wonderful idea. They reached the same conclusion, no doubt. But the focus is, the emphasis is shifted. The problems and concerns of humanity take the primary importance, and the other academic or theological concerns about dogmas, they take the lesser space. So, in a way, I think Buddhism and Jainism they concern themselves with suffering human being from the ethical point of view. Actually, as you know, these two Dharma traditions have been termed as ethical religions. The moral values they emphasize, the ethical perspective they keep in mind is more important than the metaphysical issues in these traditions. So when Buddha, you know about his story, I'm not going to repeat it, but he hinted at that there are four Arya Satya, noble truths. Four noble truths. He got these things from experience. And these are, one is that there exists word and human beings. And then they are in suffering. They suffer on account of one or other thing in their whole life, from disease to death. They go through sufferings in their entire existence. And then there is a cause of this suffering. He identified desire as the cause of suffering. And then for a solution, fourth noble truth is the solution. He said the solution also is there. And for the solution, he provided an eightfold path, Ashtamarga, eightfold path. And if you study, I'm not going to go into the details, it is available on the internet, what is eightfold path. We are discussing the semiotic significance, therefore, in a way, this fourfold truths, the four noble truths, relate to the analysis of human existence and the solution for its predicament. So, what he, in his insight, the most important insight that he gives us, that in order to avoid suffering, we have to control our desires, because desire is the cause of suffering. And for that purpose, we have to live in a manner so that we avoid the two extremes. So he provided a model for middle path. One extreme is indulgence, fulfilling all the desires. The other extreme is denying all the desires. These are two extremes in our living scheme. Buddha said, let us be moderate. Let us try to find a middle path in which our desires, which are justified, rational, they are fulfilled, and irrational desires, the imaginative, fantastic our desire, they should be avoided to escape from the clutches of suffering. So this thesis, the similar thesis was provided by Jainism. Jainism also gives us the idea of liberation in the form of Kaivalya Gyan. Kaivalya Gyan means the rightful knowledge. When human beings get that total knowledge of life and existence, because they don't, Jainism rejects the idea of God altogether. Buddhism keeps silent about it. He neither denies it nor accepts it. But these two traditions, they build their worldview and way of life on the premises of the existential human being. For the point of departure for their thought is man in the world. It's a very important and very modern idea. They start theorizing about man's concerns in his day-to-day activities and aspirations, desires, imaginations, dreams. and they built up a system, and in the meantime, their philosophical attitude about these things remains within the framework of our total global Indic tradition, because they accept the efficacy of karma, sansara, and transmigration. An interesting thing is, in Vedic thought, karma meant two things. Karma meant karma kand also. Karma kand is ritualism, and action also. But main emphasis in the Vedic period was on the karma as karma kand. Up to Brahman Granth, in the Samhitas and Aranyaks, the more emphasis is put on the symbolic ritual actions, not actual actions that we perform in life. And then the Gyan was there. In Upanishadic period, there was emphasis on Gyan. That's why Upanishads are called Gyan Kand. The first stage is Karma Kand, where ritual dominates, and after Upanishadic thought, we enter into Gyan Kand. The knowledge gets the prime space. And important thing is, there is a linkage between Upanishadic thought and Buddhism in the form of Yajnavalkya. Yajnavalkya is a very important rishi, compiler of Upanishad. Yajnavalkya has Vrihadaranyaka Upanishad. In that, the symbolic significance of yajna and ritualism is rejected. And in that place, dhyan comes into prominence. Another important development in Hinduism came from the south. It is bhakti. You know, in Kabir Panthis, there is a couplet. Bhakti Dravid Upji. The bhakti was born in the south, Dravid country. Lai Ramanand. And it was brought to north by Ramananda Swami, Swami Ramananda, who was disciple of Swami Ramanuja Acharya. From in the place of rishis, now we have a stage of acharyas, who the system builders. Acharyas are teachers. They build systems. Rishis perceive the reality through meditative vision. These are important things to understanding tradition. And other thing says, Bhakti Dravid Upji, Laye Ramanand, Pragat Kiya Kabir ne, Sapt Deep Navakhand. And it was Kabir who spread the message of bhakti throughout 7 continents. Sapt Deep, Navakhand, and 9 parts of the world. This was geographical vision of that time, our geographical. And India was called Bharatakhand. Jambu Dvipe Bharatakhande. This was name given to this land of ours in which we live. In Pakistan, Afghanistan, most of the areas were included in that Bharatakhande. But we are concerned how this two things we experimented with. One was action, karma kand, and the other was jnana. And now third force comes into existence in our religious traditions at the time of Vedas also. That is bhakti. Interestingly, when Krishna was giving discourse to Arjuna, at one place he emphasized the importance of karma. At another place he gave importance to jnana. And Still at another place, he gave importance to bhakti. Arjuna was confused. He was a Punjabi like myself. He said, "Oh Bhagwan, please don't confuse me. Either you say that Gyan is important, or the bhakti is important, or karma is important." Krishna resolves this confusion in a very terse statement. He says, "Gyan yukt karma hi bhakti hai." Bhakti means Gyan yukta karma, the karma in relationship with Gyan. So all these things are considered to be very important in our traditions. And Buddhism and Jainism, they do not mention any bhakti, but they emphasize Gyan and Karma. Karma not in the sense of Karma Kand, only in the sense of actions that we perform and the fruits that we get on account of that. So there is a cause and effect. The Buddhist philosophy is called Satkaryavad, dependent origination, the principle of dependent origination. It says that every cause has an effect and it leads to another cause. Like Marxian analysis, there is a thesis, then there is antithesis, then synthesis. And the synthesis becomes another thesis for further development. This is a dialogical process going on in the world of ideas also. Similarly, we can say, now we come to the third tradition, which is very complicated and which is very problematic for Indian mind. That is Charvaka, because it rejects all the theses of the Vedic tradition. First of all, these three philosophical systems are known as Nastika. Nastika not in the sense that they don't believe in God, they do not believe in the in Vedas. Nastika's definition is given by Vedic people as Nastiko Ved Nindakaha. Nastik is the who rejects Vedas as evidence. So Veda Vakya was considered to be an proof of reality. But these traditions rejected this thesis. Instead, they emphasized on pratyaksha, direct perception of reality, or inference, anuman. Pratyaksha, anuman. These were sufficient proofs for the existence of anything which is real. But Vedic people also added the word of Vedas to support their thesis. And these Charvakas, they gave a very interesting model for living. In their one shloka, Brihaspati is considered to be their founder of this thought. And in one shloka it is said, Yavat jivet sukham jivet rinam kritva ghritam pivet. So long as you live in happiness, live with pleasure. Yavat jivet sukham jivet, and take loans and satisfy your need. Don't think of returning the loan. And another thing which is philosophical, he said, Bhasmi bhutasya dehasya punaragmanam kuta. Because the body dies, body vanishes at the time of death, and there is no coming back. So it rejects all the major tenets of the other traditions. So Charvakas and Lokayats, we do not have any text available to us written by them, only references in the other thinkers we get to know about their thought pattern. They can be considered as thoroughly materialistic thinkers rather than spiritual thinkers. All the other traditions are spiritual in one way or the other. But Charvaka is totally materialistic in its outlook, and whereas Buddhism and Jainism are partially materialistic, if not wholly. So, because they have the model of an enlightened being, Buddha, what they praise, Buddham Sharanam Gacchami. I go to the Sharana of a Buddha. Sangham Sharanam Gacchami. And Buddham Sharanam Gacchami, another third, Dhammam Sharanam. Dhamma is the Dharma. So, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. These are the three elements of their theology. Buddha does not refer to any particular person. Buddha is Gautam Siddhartha, and he becomes enlightened after so many births. We have Jatakas, the stories of his previous lives, and we see Buddha coming into this being every time in a different form. Sometimes he takes birth as an animal, other time as a Brahmin, and other time as a king. So this is the thinking. A very beautiful novel written by Hermann Hesse, Siddhartha, illustrates the life of Buddha and his teaching in a very, very interesting manner. We had in our Punjabi language teaching course, we prescribed this text in translation. And Hermann Hesse has recreated the image of a Buddha from the Western point of view. And Buddha's enlightenment is a result of his journey through life, passing through all the earlier phases of belief patterns and living situations, belief patterns and living situations. He was born in an orthodox family where ritual practices were the order of the day. He performed those things, but he became dissatisfied. One day he told his father, "Father, I want to go out from this home. I'm not satisfied." But his father was reluctant to allow him. He said, "Okay, then I will sit and wait for your orders." So, by his sheer stubbornness, steadfastness, you can also say, he was ultimately allowed by his father to go in the search of truth. And then he enters into the people practicing different ritual systems and belief patterns. There he meets people like Ajit Keshkambali, Mekhali Ghoshal. I do not go into the matter, but Siddhartha has Hermann Hesse given a very lively picture how one attains enlightenment. The thing is enlightenment, not liberation. There is no question of liberation. It is enlightenment when you are enlightened and to know the real state of affairs in human life. So ultimately he goes, he crosses the river, meets Kamala, the object of desire, and begs for love from her. She says, you cannot have love freely. I am a Nagarvadhu. You can pay for my love, only then. Buddha says that you please teach me what is love. She says, I can teach you only if you have money. So go and first earn money. He said, I have a friend of mine who is a very rich man, go to him and earn money and then come to me. So these things uh, are very important in Buddhist thought. The symbolic or semiotic significance is that Buddhism gives us a model of life which is based on our existential situations. And the ultimate ideal that Buddha keeps in mind, is enlightenment. So, enlightened human being is the model. Now, this was the situation during the period when Kshatriyas entered into rivalry with the priests. You know, both Buddha and Mahavir, they were Kshatri princes. Earlier, the realm of knowledge and learning was in the hands of Brahmin class and priest class. They had the monopoly over this vast heritage of knowledge, and because people, it was written in Sanskrit, and the language of the people became Prakrit. It was at a distance from the classical Sanskrit. So, Mahavira and Buddha used the language of the people prevalent at that time, Pali, as well as Buddha used Pali, which was some sort of a deviation from Sanskrit, original Sanskrit. So they were talking in the language of the people and catering to their daily concerns and giving them the way to enlightened living. So this was, you can say, these three traditions, they contributed in our total civilizational context. Our Indic civilization gets richer with these experiments. These are divergent experiments in the field of reality and truth, because it has always been the aspiration of Indian mind, which is very aptly said in Upanishad, that tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, lead me from darkness to light, asto ma sadgamaya, from untruth lead me to truth, mrityurama amritam gamaya, from death lead me to immortality. These have been the aspirations of our people who believed in the cosmic consciousness. Our people have always been interested in the vantage point from where the meaning of all existence becomes clear. And that is the Brahma consciousness, consciousness of the ultimate reality, and the idea of supreme being. These both concepts have been experimented with. Buddhism dropped the idea of supreme being altogether, and in its place placed a human being, suffering human being, at the center of philosophizing. Therefore, why the Buddhism was accepted throughout the world. It traveled from the same Silk Route, and there is a Silk Route coming into India, entering into India. People from other cultures, other civilizations have been traveling along this road for trade as well as for conquest. Our people have remained there only because in the ancient times we had ample wealth in our hand. We need not go in search of wealth to other lands. Other people, they came to us. But interesting thing is, where other people came to India for conquest, for conquering our land, our ideas went through the same route to conquer the world, to give the message of peace and non-violence. So Buddhism became a great world religion only on account of its concern with the problems of average ordinary human being in his or her existential concerns. So it was acceptable to everyone because it did not amount to conversion. Anybody could accept the teaching of Buddha and side by side keep his own belief pattern. This is the beauty of our traditions, that we do not insist on converting other people to our point of view. We tell them that there are diverse ways to reality, diverse paths to reality. You treat your own path, we can treat our own path, but we can exchange good things, good thoughts about living, about reality. So we should know that this idea of reality and living have been marginalized by us also, not by foreigners. We forgot all these basic truths of life given by our rishis, Buddha, Mahavira, and other thinkers. They sprang up in these traditions, and they were all working for the liberation or enlightenment of